should start.
I thought so. Excellent. Hi, Apothepartyers. Welcome back to Writer's Corner. Our guest today is John Desilets, author of Appalachian Fail. Talks about his misadventures on the Appalachian Trail. Would that be accurate?
That is accurate.
If you're wondering why I'm dressed like a wackadoodle today, it's because right after this we're doing a Mad Hatter tea party, and if you want to come to one, go to the website. We'll talk about it later. Now, I know you're a tea drinker, so that's handy.
I am. A very unfancy one, but I'm learning.
Lipton,
Yeah, absolutely.
Tetley, something like that. I don't know which one.
Whichever's cheaper.
I'm not a hiker. Very much not one, so I can't imagine what would possess somebody to hike the Appalachian Trail. What was your inspiration to do this?
So, originally in high school, in Boy Scouts, our troop took us on a 5-day trip through the Appalachians in New Hampshire. We did a 50-mile stretch to the presidential range, and it was super cool.
No one died?
No one died.
Okay.
Only one person got lost, but we found them. And we met a bunch of people who were just finishing up their through hikes, and they all just seemed so happy. And they had like cool stories.
That. You could smell them from a mile
You
away.
could absolutely smell them coming, and they could smell you. It's so clean.
I also heard that this was your honeymoon. So how did your bride feel about the prospect of, oh, my honeymoon, it's going to be magical and dirty and tiring and with lots of other people?
Yeah, I mean, not super enthused initially. Initially, I was just going to do it when we moved here, but she wasn't super happy about the idea of just kind of being alone for 6 months while I hiked. So she decided to join, found a bunch of materials to help us prepare, helped us draft up some plans to move from LA, helped draft the budget, got all ready. So she was on board eventually.
And you're still married?
We're still married.
So that's good.
I mean, she hasn't said this at any point, but I think I owe a different honeymoon too at some point. But
Shh, don't tell her. She's totally not watching this. So, you're a tea drinker. What would you like to base your tea off today? Has to be something about your book.
yeah, so I figured I would just make it nature-y.
Okay.
Including a lot of the elements that we, hike through. So, got some flowers, got some trees, and I have something that just tastes like earth.
Dirt, good place to start with your tea. So, what would you like to pick first?
So I think kind of built around rose, and then I would like dandelion.
A nice dirt case.
Delicious root. We're gonna have a little hint of sage.
But just a hint, right?
Just a hint. I'm not gonna make that mistake again. We'll get some black tea in there.
Okay.
That's gonna be useful for the caffeine you need to get you up and going.
Power through.
And then we'll get some white willow.
Have at it.
All right.
While you're doing it, why don't you tell us if there's a piece of advice that you would offer a thru hiker who's deciding they want to go for their first try at it?
So, I would say there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of books. There's a lot of videos. You can find the help you want. I think what I saw, and it was one of the pieces of advice that was given to me early on, was that usually the biggest indicator of whether or not you actually finish the trail is just what you're able to put up with. You're gonna you're gonna experience new types of squalor that you haven't really experienced before. It's a type of lifestyle that you're like, oh my god, why am I doing this? But the more you put up with, the more likely you are to be able to finish.
You make it sound so appealing.
Yeah, it's got a lot of great parts, but they're interspersed. You can't appreciate the highs without the lows.
I feel like I can appreciate my highs without going hiking.
Have you ever met wild ponies
I have not.
that just lick salt off your legs?
No. I have. Have you met wild children that have licked salt off your legs? It's like if you stumble into a preschool or something. Like a playground. Oh no, where am I?
I want to go on record and say I've never stumbled into a playground and had children lick salt off their legs.
I haven't either. I was. Side note for everybody at home, if you already take any blood thinners or aspirin, or if you take NSAIDs or Tylenol or any of that kind of thing, don't use willow bark. That would be a bad idea. For the same reason you can't take aspirin and Tylenol at the same time. You're not taking any of those, right?
I didn't hear the whole list, so I'm gonna assume no.
Cool. And then you grind, the best part. Fortunately with this one, we don't have to do a lot of it. There's no cinnamon or anything that's really difficult in there. Unfortunately for you, because that's the cathartic part. You probably get it. Yeah. Give it a sniff though, just out of curiosity.
It does not smell as bad as I was expecting it to.
This is where we won't add filler music. We'll just let it be awkward and quiet. But in my head, I'm singing Girl from Ipanema.
I was just gonna start singing Girl from Ipanema.
So with your black tea, you don't need to grind it, so he's just gonna mix it a little bit. And then he will put 2 heaping spoonfuls of his very intriguing creation into his infuser.
Perfect.
We shall see. I mean, I have complete faith in you. And then into the pot. We'll put water in it now. Wait, maybe the white rabbit can come help us. He's clearly not late for our party, so he can do something helpful.
I'm running late.
Hi,
Sorry.
Mr. Rabbit. Could you put water in that? Thanks.
I'd be happy to.
Look, it's a trail friend. It's a bunny. While we wait for that to steep, we're going to send you off to hang out with John for a bit, and hopefully, if you're very nice to him, he'll sneak a peek at his book with you.
Chapter 8. You'll accomplish unforgettable things in life, then you'll forget most of them. Life is full of huge moments we'll carry in our memory for the rest of our lives. There are just some moments that will always stick with you. If you're a mother, I'm sure you'll remember the birth of your firstborn forever. Long after the memory of that embarrassing thing you said that one time in 4th grade fades, which, depending on how old you are, could be anywhere between 2 to 3 decades from now, you'll still remember how it felt to hold your child for the first time. You'll remember how it felt to hear their cry for the first time. You'll remember how it felt to defecate in front of a room full of people for the first time. As an adult, at least. Presumably. I don't know, try to. That's a moment you know in your heart of hearts will never fade. Life is also full of moments that have a profound impact on you, and you tell yourself, I will never forget this moment. But then you do. An example of this is probably the birth of your second child. You'll never admit it to them, but you've already forgotten the moment of their birth. Heck, reading this probably reminds you you're not even sure when their birthday is. Here's a hint. It's Christmas. The second child always ends up getting the combined Christmas birthday presents. The point is, even moments that seem huge at the time are easy to forget. You can never be sure which moments are those for-life moments and which are the until a random bit of media trivia pushes it out of my brain moments. The worst part is, the more spectacular your life, and the more great experiences you have, the more likely you are to push moments out of your memory that were amazing. Granted, you're taking their place with more great memories, but wouldn't you like to keep them all? So I decided early on to journal every day I was on the trail. I'm not a journaler. I've always wanted to be a journaler, and I've tried to be at many points in my life, but it never stuck. As such, I was a little nervous about this. The trail was hard enough without forcing myself to stick to something I didn't even have the motivation to do in normal life. Regardless, I made the decision to do it, and I was determined to see it through. When I got off the trail and decided to write this book, the first thing I did was read all my journal entries. This was to get an idea of what would be fun to include in the book and what would be boring, even to me. What I found was both sad and enlightening. There were moments from the hike and sometimes entire days that I had completely forgotten about. I was only on the trail for about 4 months, so losing memories in the moment had been significant enough for me to include in my journal was pretty mind-blowing. It made me think about how many memories we non-journaling folk lose every day. So I want to give you a few examples of the memories I'd forgotten about, so you can get an idea of their significance. Then I'll follow up with some life advice you might find useful, which I probably won't actually do for this reading. You'll have to check out the book yourself for the extra advice. So near Irwin, Tennessee, Rebecca and I were hiking down the mountain. There was a steep drop-off to one side, dense foliage on the other. I turned a corner and my heart stopped. There was a doe sprinting up the trail towards me. Now, let me tell you, I completely understand the whole deer in the headlights thing now, except in this situation I was the deer, and the deer was the headlights. I just stood there dumbstruck as this giant animal was barreling towards me. Right at the last moment, it cut into the woods to the right of us and disappeared. I stood there staring at where the deer had been a few minutes earlier. I'd been hiking in front of Rebecca, and she was following close behind me, and just asked me why I stopped. I told her, well, I was a little freaked out from that giant deer that almost just ran me over. She had no idea what I was talking about. She had been a few feet behind me and missed the entire thing. I would have thought I was going crazy if she hadn't at least seen the deer jump into the woods. On a normal hiking trip, something like that might have, stuck with you. That might be a story you tell a party for years, but after a month on the trail, that memory was quickly pushed out by the other unbelievable things that happened on a daily basis.
Another time, Grizz Lightweight and I were hiking together, and we spent the night at Rice Field Shelter up in Harrisburg, Virginia. When we were there, we ended up running into several people we've been leapfrogging with for the past week. One of them had a really annoying habit that got under our skin. She'd always say, you know, if I were you, and then followed up with a critique of something that, we were doing that she would have done it a different way, or she'd tell us about some piece of gear we had that she thought was inferior to hers. Needless to say, it wasn't the best way to make friends on the trail. Later in the evening, a few more hikers showed up. Grizz and I were sitting at the table eating dinner, and they dropped their packs off and looked around camp. After a few moments, they noticed the aforementioned hiker in the shelter and gave each other a look. I heard them debate moving on, but after a glance at their phones, they decided they'd never make it to the next shelter before it got dark. They opened their packs and got their dinner out, and one of them leaned over to me. Does she still do that thing where she criticizes everything everyone does all the time? You've met, I see. As Grizz and I were finishing up dinner, one of the hikers pulled out a square flat rock about 1/4 of an inch thick with 6-inch sides. He put it on a stove and turned it on. Then he pulled out some bread and cheese and put them on the stone. Grizz and I stared in amazement. Are you making grilled cheese on a rock on your camp stove? Does that work? Apparently. We saw a guy named Parkour do it a few weeks ago, and it was delicious. So Grizz and I watched this hiker cook his grilled cheese, both of us green with envy, also green from having recently finished our own meals, which left much to be desired. Grizz had finished his typical dinner of top ramen, and I had finished my dinner of rice and tuna. When the grilled cheese looked brown to perfection, he turned his stone off. No sooner had he done so than the rock on his stove exploded. And I mean really exploded. Tiny bits of hot shrapnel shot everywhere. A sharp piece of rock flew past my face and embedded into the side of the shelter. One piece landed on Grizz's food bag, and the heat caused it to melt straight through. Both of us stared at the smoldering grilled cheese in shock. Oh yeah, Parkour warned us that might happen too. Then a voice came from the shelter. If I were you... None of us could even hear what she said over the sound of our own laughter.
Hey, guess what time it is?
What time is it?
It's time to taste your book.
Ooh.
Let's see if it brings back any memories.
I hope it tastes better than I smelled.
So do I. Any memories? Bring you anything back?
Oddly enough, the smell brings me back to kind of sleeping in the dirt, but the taste does not taste like dirt. So it's kind of win-win.
That sounds like a win to me. There you have it. Remember to pick up his book in the description down below. We'll have links to all of his stuff, including where you can purchase that. We'll also have a link to our website so you can come in and make your own tea. If you don't live in New England, don't worry, we have you covered there too, because we also have subscription boxes you can get. Yes, and chemist tea sets so you can build your own. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And see you guys next time, my little tea aficionados.